There is a moment, and you know the one, where you pick up your phone, look at the message confirming tonight's plans, and something inside your chest tightens. Not because you dislike the people, not because you're sad, but because every fiber of your being is quietly, almost desperately, whispering one word, home. And then you cancel. You send the text. You craft some small, forgivable excuse. And the second you hit send, something extraordinary happens. A wave of relief moves through your entire body, so total and so immediate that it almost scares you. Your shoulders drop, your breathing slows, the apartment goes still, and in that stillness, you feel something you haven't felt all week. You feel like yourself again. The door is locked. The lights are low. The world, with all its noise and expectations and performances, is on the other side. And for the first time in days, you are not performing. You're just existing. If you've ever felt that, deeply and repeatedly, this is for you. We live in a culture that has turned constant togetherness into a moral virtue. Being busy is a badge. Being social is proof of health. Being surrounded by people on a Friday night is somehow evidence that your life is working. And so the person who would rather spend that same evening alone with a book, or a quiet meal, or simply staring out the window while the rain hits the glass, begins to wonder if something inside them is broken. You've probably asked yourself that. Sitting alone on a Saturday night while your phone fills with stories of other people out living what the world insists is the right kind of life. You've probably looked at your own silence and thought, what's wrong with me? The answer, and I need you to hear this clearly, is nothing. Absolutely nothing. What you are experiencing is not a deficit. It is not depression wearing a comfortable sweater. It is not social anxiety hiding behind preference. What you are experiencing is a mind that operates at a depth most people never reach, and that depth has a cost, and that cost is energy, and the only way to replenish that energy is to be alone. Not distracted alone, not scrolling alone, truly, quietly, unmistakably alone. The first thing you have to understand is that for certain minds, socializing is not passive. It is not something that happens to you. It is something you do actively and with tremendous effort every single second you are in the presence of other people. When you walk into a room, your brain does not simply register faces. It reads micro-expressions. It tracks vocal tones. It measures the emotional temperature between two people who just stopped talking when you approached. It calculates what to say, how to say it, when to laugh, when to hold back, when to seem interested and when to seem relaxed, all simultaneously, all invisibly, all while appearing completely natural. This is not socializing, this is performing, and you have been doing it so long, so fluently, that most people in your life have no idea how much it takes out of you. They see someone calm, someone thoughtful, someone pleasant. They have no idea that behind that composure is a mind running at full capacity just to keep the interaction feeling seamless. So when you come home and close that door, you are not retreating from life. You are recovering from it. The exhaustion you feel is not laziness. It is the legitimate fatigue of a nervous system that has been processing the world at a resolution most people don't even know exists. And this leads to something rarely talked about but universally felt among people like you. Sensory saturation. Your brain does not filter the world the way others do. The hum of fluorescent lights in an office, the overlapping conversations at a dinner table, the particular pitch of someone chewing too loudly across from you, the subtle shift in a friend's tone that tells you they're upset about something they're not mentioning, all of it enters your awareness without permission. You don't choose to notice these things. Your brain simply refuses to ignore them. In psychology, this is sometimes called sensory processing sensitivity, and it is not a disorder. It is a neurological trait found in roughly 15 to 20% of the population, and it means your brain is wired to absorb more information from your environment than average. The upside is perception, creativity, empathy, and an almost uncanny ability to read people. The downside is that the world is loud even when it's quiet. A trip to the grocery store is not just a trip. It is a flood of stimuli, colors, sounds, spatial awareness, social navigation, decision fatigue, and by the time you get home and set the bags on the counter, You feel like you've run a marathon no one else could see. There is another layer here, one that lives deeper than sensory fatigue, and it has to do with how your brain experiences reward. Neurologically, extroverted brains tend to run on dopamine. They are energized by external stimulation, by novelty, by social feedback, by the rush of being seen and heard and surrounded. The more people in the room, the more alive they feel. Your brain works differently. Research suggests that more introverted, inward-leaning minds rely more heavily on a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine, which is associated with a completely different kind of pleasure. Not the pleasure of stimulation, but the pleasure of turning inward, of deep thought, of memory, of imagination, of sitting with a single idea and letting it unspool slowly across the quiet landscape of your mind. This means that when you choose a night alone over a night out, you are not missing out on pleasure. You are choosing a different kind of it, a kind that the world does not celebrate, does not photograph, does not post, and therefore does not validate. But it is no less real. In fact, for your particular brain, it is more real, more satisfying, more fundamentally nourishing than any crowded room could ever be. This is also where creativity lives, not in the brainstorm, not in the meeting, not in the collaborative whiteboard session your workplace romanticizes. Creativity, real creativity, the kind that changes how you see things, lives in the unstructured hours. It lives in the shower thought at 11 in the morning when no one is expecting anything from you. It lives in the walk you take with no destination. It lives in the 3 hours you spend doing what looks like nothing but is actually your mind quietly rearranging everything it has absorbed into something entirely new. Psychologists call this incubation, the process by which the unconscious mind works on problems the conscious mind has temporarily set aside. It cannot happen in noise. It cannot happen in obligation. It can only happen in the fertile, unhurried emptiness that solitude provides. And so every time someone tells you that you're wasting a beautiful day by staying inside, what they don't realize is that inside is where the most important work is happening. Not productivity in the way the world measures it, but the slow, invisible construction of insight, of understanding, of meaning. There is something else that solitude gives you that almost no one acknowledges, and it is this: emotional sovereignty. When you are constantly around others, your emotional state becomes a negotiation. You absorb their anxieties, you mirror their energy, you modulate yourself to fit the room. You hold space, you listen, you give, and slowly, without realizing it, you lose track of what you actually feel beneath all the feelings you've been carrying for everyone else. Solitude is where you set those borrowed emotions down. It is where you finally ask yourself, not what does everyone need from me, but what do I need? That question, simple as it sounds, requires an enormous amount of quiet to answer honestly, and most people never get enough quiet to ask it. You do. Not because you are antisocial, but because you are, perhaps without knowing it, one of the most emotionally intelligent people in any room you enter, and that intelligence demands maintenance. It demands space. It demands silence, the way a deep-sea diver demands decompression. Without it, you don't just feel tired, you feel lost inside your own life. And yet the world will not frame it this way. The world will tell you that your 20s are for going out, your 30s are for networking, your weekends are for plans, your evenings are for people. And if you opt out of any of it, you are wasting time, wasting potential, wasting your youth. You've heard these things from people who love you, which is what makes them so hard to dismiss. Your mother worries. Your friends joke that you've disappeared. Your coworker tilts their head and asks, with genuine concern, if everything is okay. And because you cannot easily explain that everything is more than okay, that you are not hiding from life but engaging with it on a level they might not understand, you start to doubt yourself. You start to wonder if maybe they're right. Maybe you should force yourself out more. Maybe solitude is just a sophisticated word for avoidance. But here is the truth that no one in your life may ever say to you. So let me say it now. The fact that you can sit with yourself for hours and not feel empty is not a flaw. It is one of the rarest forms of inner wealth a human being can possess. Most people cannot tolerate 5 minutes of silence without reaching for a screen. You build entire worlds in it. I want you to think about the last time you felt truly at peace. Not happy in the way social media defines it, not excited, not stimulated. At peace, I would be willing to guess that you were alone. Maybe it was early morning, before the house woke up, and you sat with coffee and watched the light change on the wall. Maybe it was late at night, long after everyone else had gone to sleep, and the world finally felt like it was yours. Maybe it was a Sunday afternoon where you had nowhere to be and nothing to prove, and you felt, for one rare and precious stretch of time, completely adequate exactly as you were. That feeling is not accidental. That is your mind in its natural state, unburdened, unhurried, unperforming. And if that state comes most reliably when you are alone, that is not something to fix. That is something to protect. Fiercely, unapologetically, and without explanation. You are not broken for wanting a quiet life. You are not failing because your idea of a perfect evening involves no other human beings. You are not behind because you would rather understand yourself deeply than be understood by everyone superficially. What you are is someone whose mind requires more room than most, more silence, more space between the notes. And in that space, you are doing something that the loud, busy, overconnected world has almost entirely forgotten how to do. You are thinking, you are feeling, you are becoming someone who actually knows who they are, instead of someone who has simply been told. So the next time you cancel plans and feel that warm, immediate flood of relief, do not apologize for it. Do not analyze it. Do not treat it as evidence of something you need to overcome. Sit in it. Let it fill the room. Let it remind you that your peace is not negotiable and your solitude is not empty. It is the fullest, most honest version of your life. And it has been waiting for you, quietly, patiently, on the other side of every door you've ever been brave enough to close. If any part of this felt like it was written about you, it probably was. Not because I know you, but because I understand the weight of living in a world that never stops talking and choosing, again and again, the profound dignity of silence. If this resonated, sit with it for a while before you move on to the next video. And if you'd like to keep exploring ideas like this, consider subscribing, not for me, for the version of you that finally wants permission to stay exactly where you are.